So it's Christmas Day, and I'm laying in my wife's hospital bed where she spent the last 4 months. I've got her favourite quilt cover on, so as you can see, it's got penguins on it. And I was sat here feeling completely and utterly lost, and thought I might as well make a video for anyone that might be interested. So that's what I'm going to do. So I was just sat here with things running through my head um, regarding the situation with my wife. I'd originally been thinking that was pretty much the end of Mel and Dave's life channel, but then I thought I could probably use it just to vent a little bit, talk about my feelings and like how I'm coping, or should I say not coping very well at the moment. It's definitely been a really weird few months, and it's really hard to think that just over a year ago our lives seemed pretty normal, and then she had that seizure out the blue, and after various tests that's when she was diagnosed with the terminal cancer. But after the first couple of seizures, she kind of made a full recovery. There was no kind of lasting effects, and she pretty much returned to 100% herself and carried on as usual. Obviously, she started the chemo and things like that, and to look at her, you wouldn't even know she was ill, which just seemed crazy. But things didn't work out the way everyone was hoping, i.e., the chemo, both of them didn't really make any difference to the cancer, and in fact, it actually got worse. And my wife was asked whether she wanted the radiation, and after a lot of discussions, she decided she didn't want to risk that. Mainly because she was told it could alter someone's personality, and as it happens, that's what kind of happened to her in the end. As of the 23rd of August, when she had the 10 seizures in the space of a few hours, we were kind of left wondering whether she'd even recover from that. So we were pleasantly surprised by just how well she actually recovered. Even back to the point where she could kind of move around the house on her own, still eat and drink herself, still able to talk, take herself to the toilet. Did take her a couple of weeks after those seizures until she could actually get out of bed and kind of start doing things as normal. We were hoping it was going to last, but sadly that wasn't the case. And over time she started getting a bit weaker, and we had a few occasions where she ended up on the floor and I couldn't get her up on my own. So we've had to call paramedics or neighbours to come round and help lift her up. She's kind of had the syringe drivers put in to administer all her drugs. Then she's made a recovery and had those removed, and she's been able to take the medications orally, and they've kind of played around with the doses and added extra like medications to help combat the seizures and things. There were times when there was quite a lot of confusion on her behalf. I remember waking up in the night once and she was kind of standing in the living room doorway, leading to the hallway, and she's trying to kind of pull her bottoms down. I asked her what she was doing, and she's like, trying to go to the loo. I'm desperate for the loo. To which I replied, you can't do it there, you need to go to the loo. And she was just basically, well, I can go where I want. And then when I tried to help her and take her to the toilet, she was basically screaming and shouting at me, telling me I was going to make her wet herself, and she was desperate for the loo and needed to go to the loo. And that was so unlike her, because she was always a lover, not a fighter, and we never argued. Then there was a confusion with her eating things that she wasn't supposed to, like cat treats, cat pouches of food. It was her birthday on the 27th of September, and someone had bought her one of those helium balloons, and it had quite a large kind of weight on it, but they'd wrapped it up to look like a big sweet. Now, I mistakenly said, oh, it looks like a massive sweet, but I'm sure it's not. It's probably a weight of some kind just to stop the balloon from floating away. Well, I was out in the kitchen doing something, and Mel was actually just sat in the living room in the dark, and I walked back in, and she was like holding something and crunching on it. And I asked her what she was doing, what she was eating, and she said it was a sweet. And I remember saying to her, well, it seems a bit crunchy to be a sweet. Turned the light on and was horrified that she's got this kind of lump of like concrete in her hand, and she's literally trying to eat it like an apple. So of course I grabbed it off. I said, you can't eat that, it's concrete. And she just kind of had this innocent blank stare, and I gave her a glass of water and got her to swill her mouth out, and she didn't really know what was going on or what was wrong. And then I kind of made her brush her teeth. So not long after that, it was pretty much decided that she'd probably be better off in bed, especially as she'd had like 3 or 4 different times where she'd ended up on the floor. I wouldn't call them falls. I'd call them. One, she went to sit on a stoop stool in the kitchen, but misjudged it and ended up on the floor. And we were sat on the kitchen floor for about 6, 7 hours waiting for the paramedics to turn up. And of course, she'd wet herself in the process and sat in a puddle of water, but I couldn't do anything about it. Um, then there was a time she accidentally sat down on the recliner part of the chair that I was sat on, and straight away I knew we were in trouble, because if I'd have got up, the chair would have tipped up, and I knew that it was only so long I could keep the footrest up before it just folded up, and eventually she ended up on the floor, and once again there she sat. And I think that happened like 3 or 4 times, and so it was decided, and she agreed it'd be better off for her to kind of stay in bed maybe. And from there on, things did get easier in the sense that she wasn't kind of walking around confused. She had had a catheter fitted at that point, so she didn't have to keep getting out of bed to go for a wee. And we had a commode right next to the bed, so if she needed a number two, she could hopefully slide off the bed onto that, do what she had to do, and get back into bed. But then it was just like, I suppose overall it happened really quick, because she spent 4 months in bed, and throughout that time, it went from she could basically kind of feed herself simple things like toast or things like that, but she would shake, when trying to like eat dinners and things, and most of it ended up on her lap. Then she started kind of missing the bowl completely with the fork, and so I took it on myself to start feeding her, which I didn't mind doing. Then it's like at first she could still hold a piece of toast and kind of eat that herself, but then it got to the point where she was having trouble gripping things because her grip was kind of going. She lost the ability to like hold any cutlery because it just slip round in her hand. So I had to feed her everything. She started off like drinking out of like a glass or a cup or whatever, but then had to use straws. Um, and then it got to the point as time went by where she went from kind of being able to talk, I wouldn't say full on conversations, but she could string a few words together and that. She knew what was going on. She knew who everyone was. Um, but every day that went by, you could kind of, well, I could because I was the one here every day. You could kind of see subtle changes, like when she went from being able to hold things to not being able to hold things or feed herself or hold a drink and drink without spilling it. At the start, she could use her phone and that still, or use a TV remote. Then she just started staring at them like she'd just completely forgotten how to use it. And that was pretty much it for watching TV or using a mobile phone or anything like that. So days went by. Um, still managing to eat and drink. She did kind of decrease the amount she was eating. Um, and you kind of get into a habit of doing the same routine day in, day out, because obviously I had to control all her medication and things like that. Obviously, we started out with like one visit a day um, when she had the 10 seizures. Then it went to two, like one in the morning and one in the like afternoon, early evening. But then when she kind of made a recovery and was able to get out of bed, like not long after, a couple of weeks I'd say after the 10 seizures, they kind of cut that out, and in the end we cut all the care visits out. And then obviously once she was back in bed, the care started and they would come in because obviously she couldn't get up the stairs and get in the shower. She couldn't stand up or whatever, and we've got a shower over the bath, so she couldn't actually get her legs over the bath to get in the shower. So they were coming in like for an hour every morning, and then eventually that increased to 4 visits a day. And at first I hated the idea of strangers coming into the house. It basically felt like every day was like Groundhog Day. I'd get up, like go through all the routine of giving her medications, making her a breakfast, feeding her a breakfast, finishing off her tablets, helping her drink her tea, sorting out the clean nightdress for the carers, glass of water and a toothbrush for them, um, covers, sheets, if they needed clean sheets to put on the bed or whatever. And when you've got like people coming in 4 times a day and providing care for a loved one, at first it's really, really strange, unusual. And I was kind of spent all day kind of checking the sheets with the times that they were due in on. They weren't always accurate, but kind of like, right, how long we got before they're back, and kind of dreading it. And then I'd do a little happy dance after the last visit in the evening, because that was the time that once I'd kind of fed Mel, given her a medication and that, and they'd done their bit, washed her, got her ready for bed and all that, and settled her. Mel had kind of got to sleep, and then it was my time to kind of just sit and chill out a little bit. Although couldn't 100% relax, because I was always kind of trying to give her sips of drink in between and stuff like that. Even changed her nappy a few times when it needed it, because obviously we didn't have any care visits throughout the night. Um, but yeah, you, because it's the same group of like carers on and off that are in multiple times every day, 7 days a week. You kind of get to know the way they work, how they are individually, all their little habits and things like that. Um, and they almost, in a funny sort of way, become part of the family. And then you go from kind of dreading them coming in to kind of feeling quite glad. I mean, I was always glad they were there, obviously, because it gives me peace of mind knowing that they'd come in, especially in the morning and at the end of the day, because you knew they'd checked her pad, changed it if needed, given her a wash down, cream on vulnerable areas and all that, repositioned her, made her comfortable so she could kind of go to sleep and sleep comfortably. So I was glad, but at the same time, I kind of hated it for quite a while. But the funny thing is, once Mel passed, it's one of the things I've struggled to deal with, is the fact that one minute they were all coming in every day, and then just like that, they're gone. You don't get no kind of closure as far as being able to speak to them all individually and thank them for everything they've done. I mean, the company and all the carers that we had throughout the last 4 months were absolutely amazing. And I mean, they all went way above and beyond their basic duties in order to provide the best care. And to be honest, they were the ones that got more smiles and more words out of my wife than I did myself. But I suppose I was more like part of the furniture. But it was just nice to hear my wife talk. I am going to try and see if there's any way that I can individually thank all the carers, because I feel in order for me to move on, I do need some sort of closure. It sounds weird because they're just carers, but they're so much more than that to me anyway. And I know the rest of the family and my wife really did like them. Uh, it's like to go from getting up every day, and my only goal for that day was to make my wife as comfortable and happy as possible with the help of the carers, to nothing and no one coming in. It is absolutely horrible. I can't even describe how it feels. It's just, I mean, it's Christmas Day now. I'm sat in my wife's hospital bed with, I have got the cat on my lap, but I've been on my own most of the day. I was invited to like my daughter's house and the grandbabies, but I just, it's so flipping stupid the amount of thoughts I've got going through my head at the moment. It's like, one, because I've been cocooned in this house, concentrating on my wife. The fact that I was caring for my wife has actually kept my mind busy. And although I know that keeping myself busy now will do me good, I just can't get my head in the right place, and I just can't bring myself to do anything. Um, Instead, I've just been sat here kind of in silence, talking to myself. We're all trying to stick together, the rest of the family. We're all struggling. I don't feel like I've been there for the family as good as I could have been, um, or good as I should be, should I say? But I'm struggling. That I just feel so completely broken, empty, and at the moment, I just have no idea how I am supposed to kind of pull myself together for the rest of the family and for me, and kind of carry on living without her, because at the moment I just really don't want to do that. I don't know how to do that. It's just horrible. And I know a lot of you will be saying, well, you need to get busy, you need to spend time with family and that, don't sit anything else on your own. And I know you're 100% right, but everyone handles things differently, and I've been really strong, stronger than I ever thought I would have been for the last 4 months. I've basically watched the life drain out of my wife's, like from my wife, until she was more or less just an empty shell, which I'm now probably traumatized by. I would do it again in a heartbeat, and I am so glad that I've done what I did, because with the help of the carers and family and that, we were able to grant my wife's last wish, which was to remain at home, not end up in a hospital or a hospice. She was able to remain at home, surrounded by family and her pets. And she always said she wanted to pass away in her sleep at home. And that's how it was. I still kind of beat myself up a little bit, because there were times throughout the last 4 months when I did get frustrated with her. I didn't really like scream and shout, but I was kind of frustrated because she wouldn't open her mouth when I was trying to feed her, or she'd just turn her face away, or she'd trying to suck it off the spoon, or try and give her a medication, and you'd put the drink with the straw in her mouth and she'd just bite the straw, and she wouldn't, it's like you'd speak to her and she'd just look right through you and not like respond to anything. And there were times, I'd be lying if I said there wasn't, where I was really frustrated and that, I'd be like swearing at myself, and now I'm kind of beating myself up for that. I didn't like shout and slap her about and stuff like that, obviously, but I know it wasn't her, it was the illness and that, but it was so flipping hard watching your loved one just kind of wither away right in front of your eyes. And now somehow I've lost my best friend, I've lost my soulmate, I've got to wake up in the house on my own. And not only that, I couldn't even, like, it feels funny because I've been cocooned in this house, and she spent the last 4 months in the bed that I'm now currently laying in, and she died in this bed that I am currently laying in. Some people may think that's a little bit weird or morbid or whatever, but I somehow feel a small amount of comfort knowing that this is where she was at the end. Obviously, the bed's going to be getting picked up at some point, and then it's going to feel really strange because there'll be no trace of all this kind of the trolleys that we've got and the hospital bed and all like that sort of stuff, and it'll almost be like it never happened. I'm kind of dreading that as well. Um, it's just really, really, really messed up. But as far as leaving the house, I'm kind of feeling like I need to remain in the house to be near my wife. Stupid as that may sound, this was where she was. This is where her life ended. And by like leaving the house, I feel like in a strange kind of way I'm abandoning my wife. I don't know why I'm thinking like that. I know it's not the case, and yes, loads of people are going to say, yeah, your wife will be looking down on me, like trying to kick me up the arse to pull myself together and get out and like not be alone. But at the moment, I just feel completely fucking broken. Excuse my language. Um, I'm not even sure whether I'll even make a full recovery from all this, to be honest. It's just so difficult. I mean, I haven't slept properly in like 2, 3 days. I haven't eaten a single thing for the last 2 days since it happened. I've just got this horrible, undescribable pain in my gut. This just overwhelming sense of loss and sadness. And the thought of eating just makes me feel completely sick. I know I need to eat. I need to look after myself. I need to be there for the family. I know that's what people are going to be saying. And yet, I just can't bring myself to do a damn thing. The house looks like a mess, but I don't care. I just don't know how to move forward. It's just been the hardest year, and these last 4 months have just been. I mean, don't get me wrong. I was honoured to be able to do that for my wife because one, she'd have done it for anyone else. Two, I would have still, or should I say, I would always have and always will do anything for her. Um, but I guess it's going to take a bit of time to kind of sort my head out and even begin to kind of move forward past all of this. But anyway, anyone that's actually made it this far in the video, I do appreciate you listening to my, oh, don't know what to call it really, me confessing my innermost thoughts or whatever, or just rambling randomly at the camera. It's rubbish. But anyway, enough about me. I hope you've all had a fantastic Christmas and you'll have an even better New Year. You're having fun spending time with loved ones. It's just been a really surreal time for me and the family. I'm going to leave this video there for now, and I might come on again in the future and have another ramble, if anyone's interested, that is. So until then, have a fantastic Christmas, have an even better New Year, and till the next video, take it easy, happy Christmas, and you'll hopefully see me again soon.